I'm DonTheCrown, and hot news from Diablo 4. Looks like they're giving us some of the stuff that they're doing feedback from, and I've actually already gone through this list, and yeah, they're doing some buffs, they're doing some nerfs, they're doing some changes in general to the game, and just showing that, yeah, the beta wasn't just there to test like the connectivity of the servers, but also that they wanted to get some feedback about the balance, about how the game feels, and some of these changes I think are really good. So let's just hop right into it right away. So this first little section here, they basically talk about how they've made a variety of fixes and updates to various systems in Diablo 4, all of which will be present in the version of the game that launches on June 6th or earlier if you buy the special edition. None of these would be possible without the community's dedication and love for Diablo universe, to which we say thank you. And then from here on out, it's basically just patch notes of stuff. Now, for one, I didn't expect to get patch notes at all from Diablo 4. I expected to boot up the game and have zero clue what changed from the beta to now. So this is some really good communication by the Blizzard team. Very, very happy about this type of stuff. We're still like over a month out from the game coming out. They have a podcast thing they're doing, I think, next week. So this is really good sign of good communication about what we can expect from Blizzard and from Diablo moving forward. So very first thing they talk about is dungeon layouts. And one of the biggest complaints was just, let's just read it. One of the most common pieces of feedback we received is that players felt that they were doing a lot of backtracking within certain dungeons. And they have optimized multiple dungeons across all zones, so it's not just the ones we saw, but all of the dungeons, to minimize the need for backtracking. And here's a list of the dungeons specifically in Fractured Peak Zone, which received layout updates: Caldera Gate, Defiled Catacombs, Derelict Lodge, Forbidden City. I'm pretty sure that Forbidden City was already pretty OP. This might be an insane dungeon now. Hoarfrost Demise, Immortal Emanation, Core Dragon Barracks, Mallwood. Mallwood wasn't really all that bad, not a lot of elites in there. And then Rhymescar Caverns. I'm kind of going to do a video about what I thought the top 5 dungeons are. And Rhymescar Caverns is on that list. So the fact that it's getting buffed is a very good sign for those that like to grind dungeons. Now, the developer's note here is our primary goal with the layout changes was to reduce certain kinds of backtracking which detract from a player's experience. An example of this change is that players previously needed to enter side rooms to interact with structure objectives, causing them to retread the same path. Now, many of these structure objectives have been repositioned along the main dungeon pathways, making it easier for players to reach and allowing them to readily explore the dungeon after defeating the structure. So no more you're going to be like going off into a little side thing, killing a whole bunch of stuff, and then backtracking. Personally, I didn't find that short type of backtracking all that bad. There was definitely sometimes you had to like go pretty far with the backtracking, but for the most part, if it's just a little side room, it's not that big of a deal. So this might even be almost too linearly of dungeon design now, but we'll have to see. Next up, dungeon events. So the chance for an event to spawn inside of a dungeon has increased from 10% to 60%. This is absolutely huge. One of the things I was really worried about is that if you wanted to farm obols, that you were basically going to have to be farming events out in the world and probably hopping through multiple instances. This is going to make it so that farming dungeons also gives you obols, maybe not as fast, but you're still going to get a decent source of these. And so if you're just grinding out dungeons a whole bunch with your friends, you'll be able to hop to town, do a little bit of gamba, and then get right back into the game. This is a good change, I think. Next up, dungeon gameplay. If you thought that the no backtracking thing was good, wait till you read this part. To reduce the need to backtrack, small numbers of straggling monsters will seek out the player to help complete the kill all objective monsters. I don't like the fact that they kept kill all monster objective in. I wish it was like 95% or something. But yeah, that'd be better to get rid of. But the fact that they like move towards you is a very, 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 very good thing. Next up, when Animus is gathered, and this is like for the dungeons like Dead Men's Dredge, for example, or Anikas. So when those are gathered, players and nearby allies will gain 10 resource and reduce all active cooldowns by 1 second. And I'm pretty sure that when you kill elites that they drop multiple of these. So the anime dungeons, whatever we're going to end up calling these, are probably going to be the best for like just speed farming for elite kills. That's pretty silly. I mean, they're already the best, and now it's going to be even better. But the cool thing is, depositing the anime at the end of the channel time is now, like, when you complete your loop, it's now gone from 3 seconds to 0 seconds. So you're a lot more likely to want to go into the second part of the dungeon, just because before it was like, well, you can just reset real fast and get back into the dungeon. They've also taken it so the time to rescue objectives, like the second part of Deadman's Dredge, is down from 3 seconds to 1.5. That's pretty good. You could probably even do this while enemies are still attacking you. All rescue objectives now drop a health potion upon completion. And then while carrying Ancient Statue, Bloodstone, Mechanical Box, or Stone Carving, you receive a momentum boost, giving you a 25% move speed increase to yourself and nearby allies. This is definitely pretty good. More move speed is very, very noticeable in this game because there's not a lot of sources of move speed. And if this stacks with the baseline 25% that players can get, that's going to be very zoomy for sure. Pedestals have had their channel time reduced to 0, so that's really good. Returning a portable object to its pedestal now fully restores health, resource, potions, and resets all cooldowns for all nearby players. That's just absolutely crazy. You just pop all your ultimates, drop the thing in, have them all ready to go, especially because a lot of times this is like prepping you to go into a boss. And so you'll be able to go into a boss fresh, which I think is very, very, very good. Also, doors will generate a minimap ping when they're opened. That's okay. And all structure objectives in dungeons now have additional combat mechanics players must overcome. So I think this just means that there's more monsters for you to kill, as opposed to just like nuke down the pile of bones. Hey, an elite pops up, you don't have to kill it. More monsters, always better. While our dungeons offer a variety of objectives to complete, player feedback stated that the action of completing each objective felt tedious. We hope that providing bonuses such as the increased mobility while carrying certain objective items will streamline and vary the experience of completing objectives. This adjustment is merely a starting point, and we intend to extend this philosophy to keys in a future update. I bet you these are like when you have to go kill a side elite that drops a key or something like that. But this is all really, really cool. I like this. These are good changes. And I like the fact that they aren't just like nuking a lot of the things that people didn't like, but they're trying to make them good. Because if it was every dungeon was exactly the same objective, it would get really bland really fast. And we're probably going to end up doing a whole bunch of different dungeons in the endgame nightmare system, as opposed to just spamming one over and over again. So it'll definitely be like mixing it up pretty good. Next up, we have a whole bunch of class buffs and nerfs. So first off, effects like stun and freeze can be applied to elite monsters twice as long before they become unstoppable. I don't really know how much time that is. And then they reviewed the class skills to confirm that all classes have access to sufficient skills that remove crowd impairing effects. I'm kind of wondering if that meant that they added some or something. They don't really mention if they added any anywhere. And many legendary powers have had updates to their effectiveness. Hopefully this means that there's a lot of legendary powers out there that are now just more appealing in general. Some of them are kind of like, why would I really want to take this type of thing? Or like, I would only take it for this one little niche situation. And so the more things that you want to have in terms of legendary power, the harder it's going to be to actually decide, which is good because you're going to have like a more unique you build. First up, Barbarians receive just a flat 10% passive damage reduction just on the class period. Level 1, 10% less damage taken than everybody else, which is crazy. And then some skill tree passives have had their damage reduction effects reduced to compensate, which I think is okay. It pretty much just means in the end, if you're going to stack those anyways, you're just as tanky as you were anyways. Now, Whirlwind does more damage and consumes more fury. I think this is fine. Whirlwind had a lot of problems where it was snapshotting a lot of stuff and people were spinning in a whirlwind for like ever. And it looked like it was going to be relatively easy to spin and win permanently. So hopefully this takes care of that issue. Now, double swing, the enhancement makes it so that it refunds its full fury cost when used on stunned or knocked out enemies. I'm wondering if what this means is that it's doing 100% of the mana you spent, or if it means that it's giving what the base cost is, which I think is 25 fury. And so when you hit an enemy that is stunned or knocked down, do I get 25 fury back, or do I get the fury that I spent back? Because if it's the 25 fury, that means that you can go fury positive by double swinging stunned or knocked down enemies, which could be really cool. Double swing definitely looks like it can do some big damage, which I'm pretty excited about. Next up, Druid. One thing that people really complain about is that companion skills sucked. You need the like 300% increased damage legendary power. Well, companions are probably now going to be overtuned. They now deal heavily increased damage. Maybe that's 100%. Maybe that's 200%. Maybe it's 50. Who knows? But that's pretty cool. All the ultimate skills have also had their cooldowns reduced. This could be pretty good too. We have to see how much of a reduction that is. Some of the ultimates didn't really feel all that great on Druid, but I didn't play it all that much. Lastly, our next up, usability improvements have been made to Maul and Pulverize, which is good. Hopefully that like 10 seconds of staying high health, you can't dip down. They like fix that so you can like dip down, but the timer stops ticking is one of the things. That would be nice. And then using a non-shape-shifting skill will transform you back to human mode, which is really nice if you were trying to basically shift a whole bunch to give yourself lots of spirit from like one of the nodes. Makes it so that every time you shift, you get spirit back, which would be kind of fun. Next up, Necromancer gets hit by some nerfs. Summoned minions will die more often, requiring players to utilize corpses more often. Many bonuses in the Book of the Dead have had their stats increased though. So I'm not sure how these two things work together, but basically they want necromancers summoning their pets more. I almost never had to summon my pets unless the butcher got a hold of them. So yeah. Now, what I've heard though at endgame is that endgame minions were already kind of dying a lot. So hopefully they do some sort of balance on the top end so they aren't dying as much. We'll have to see. And if some of these bonuses in the Book of the Dead are like for the sacrifice stuff, maybe you just forego having minions altogether. Once again, we'll have to see the actual numbers. The damage dealt by Corpse Explosion skill has been reduced. People were kind of expecting the Perma Blood Mist Corpse Explosion build to kind of get nerfed. And I'm not seeing any like hard nerfs to any of the OP builds. So we'll have to see here. I really don't like the Perma Blood Mist build, but you know, we'll have to see. Next up, the brightness of skeletal warriors and mages has been reduced, and I believe that the devs had stated that you will not be able to see other people's skeletal minions in town, so you want to see them all over the place. Next up, rogues get a little bit of buffs, a little bit of nerfs. The upgrades for the subterfuge skills have had their bonuses increase. Multiple passive skills have had their bonuses increased, but then imbuement skills have had all of their cooldowns increased. So you're not going to be able to spam the like shadow imbuements, blow stuff up all the time, which kind of sucks. That was like the big source of AoE, but we'll have to see how much cooldown that is. Hopefully it's still like somewhat reasonable for the rogue. Next up, Sorcerer is going to get a few nerfs. Charge Bolt, though, is getting buffed in terms of damage, and its mana cost has been reduced. So hopefully Charge Bolt kind of like takes off here a little bit. Chain Lightning basically decrease the damage of Chain Lightning and reduce its effectiveness against bosses. Chain Lightning, I definitely felt needed a nerf. Decreasing the damage is probably fine at the beginning, but it definitely falls off after like 10 or 12 even. Like after you've had it at level 5 for a while, it kind of just felt like the damage just, especially as you start fighting more and more and more enemies. Basically, by the time I like dragged myself across the line at Hydra, I was like kind of struggling a little bit with Chain Lightning. So I don't know if I like this too much. Now that said, I saw some sorceresses in full like pimped out level 35 gear, like two-shotting bosses. So maybe that was a problem, but I honestly don't necessarily agree with this nerf too much. Maybe if the damage reduction is a little bit, but I think what they could have done is just reduce the number of chains maybe. I don't know. I feel like at level 1, like it felt insane. And then once you had it at level 5 for a while, it didn't feel that great anymore. They also decreased the cooldown for incinerate skills enchantment bonus. I believe this is the one where every like minute or something, like a snake appears and burns things. Could be okay. Now firewalls will spawn underneath enemies more frequently when using its enchantment bonus. This is a really nice patch note. We've been doing a lot of theory crafting for builds, especially Sorcerer. I'm not starting Sorcerer, but we have a Sorcerer probably on our team. And I think there's going to be an insane fire burning crit build. And more firewall spawn is basically just very dumb. It's going to do a lot of damage. Very, very big damage. Hopefully we'll do a video about that or something. But I'm very excited about the big fire damage Sorcerer. Next up, increase the lucky hit chance for meteor skills enchantment bonus. This is also something you use in that particular build. Let me see if I can recall what exactly that does right now. But yeah, meteor is very, very strong, I think, once you get everything kind of cooking. And yeah, we'll just see how this works out. I kind of feel like they nerfed the lightning stuff and they buffed some of the lightning stuff. Like charge bolt might be actually good now. Chain lightning is so stupid, just chaining off the screen. So yeah, let's see how good fire is. Whenever we introduce changes to our classes, it is with the goal of making both them and their skills feel impactful and powerful. Your feedback has helped us to uphold this ideal. Some players have adeptly noticed that certain skills were too powerful, which is interesting because they didn't mention Hydra here. One of our goals for skills is to have them be interesting to wield and interactive in terms of itemization and combat feel. We've made some changes to help in this regard, one example being the Necromancer's minions. We've made a change that makes them more vulnerable in combat, which will make raising the dead a more active component of the Necromancer's gameplay. Launch is just the first step of our class balance journey, and you can expect further updates that iterate on this pillar of Diablo IV. So yeah, that's the class stuff. Next, UI. UI was one of the big hot topics in the Diablo IV beta, and they did fix some of the issues. So they fixed an issue where the built-in screen reader wasn't reading key prompts, game option details, and other UI text. I think that this definitely is important to have done correctly. You can get in a lot of problems as a game company, or really anybody, if your game's not accessible to people that can't read or blind, or all sorts of different things that could be an issue with your game. And so the fact that they made this a high priority fix is a very, very good thing. Next up, fixed any issue where actions cannot be bound to the mouse wheel, which pretty much means to me I might just be binding move and interact to mouse wheel, maybe. But yeah, bounding stuff to mouse wheel I think is very, very classic Diablo 3 style. They also fixed an issue where evade can't be bound to the right analog stick on controller, so some controller fixes. And chat will now display on the left side of the screen when using the center action bar configuration. So I believe it was on the right side, now it's moving to the left. I don't think that's big of a deal. And then now a character's stats will be displayed by default when a player clicks the materials and stats button within their inventory. That's really, really good. I still really wish these were 2 buttons. They should just be 2 separate buttons. Like, just 2 buttons. That's all you need to do. Just 2 buttons. Like, I don't know. Move and interact inputs can now be mapped to 1 button, while the primary attack input is mapped to a secondary button. So the other thing I'm probably going to do is just make it so left click is move and interact, and then my old left click is like 1 or something. But yeah, I think that those are all really, really good changes. The last thing is the sans serif font used in game has been replaced with the new serif font. So I didn't really mind the font all that much. There was some like visual stuff, but like I feel that when you first start playing a game, the font really jumps out at you and you kind of get used to it. So it's not necessarily something that I cared about too much. So yeah. Next up, encounters. They fixed multiple issues that allowed bosses like the Butcher to become unresponsive. I never had that issue. I never saw the Butcher like being unresponsive. I did see him like run away very quickly, but yeah. Then the next thing is kind of scary. So the Butcher has been reevaluated for difficulty and will present a greater challenge in World Tiers 3 and 4. Personally, the Butcher like killed so many people. And the Butcher murdered me so many times when my build was just getting started. So I can just imagine how much more difficult he's going to be in 3 and 4. This might be the type of thing where like in endgame, if you're playing in hardcore and you see the Butcher in World Tier 3 and 4, you just like log out or hit your little scroll of escapey thing. So yeah. Next up, bosses like Tchort, Malnok, and Venard. Malnok is not really the boss, but others have been reevaluated for melee character difficulty, resulting in changes to attacks and fight mechanics. So I'm hoping what this means is that when I think his name is Frosthorn in Malnok, when he swings his axe like this, it like actually has the hitbox of the axe. And when you are standing behind him, he has to like turn and swing as opposed to turn and instantly swing, or swing and turn, which was basically you couldn't like not get hit by him. If you were within range of him and he wanted to hit you, he will just always hit you regardless of which way you moved, left or right. So yeah, hopefully good change. They also fixed an issue where vampire brutes were using the shadow affix or enchant affix with chain, cast, and pale. I definitely got hit by this, so it's a good fix. Next up is something kind of weird. Cellars. So they increased the chance for a dungeon event to occur in cellars. Cellars will now consistently reward a chest upon completion. They fixed an issue where they'd be marked as complete and then like prematurely, and they fixed an issue where the guaranteed elite monster would be absent from a cellar. I don't really know why they're pushing cellars. I really don't know why I want to go into cellars yet, but maybe if there's always a dungeon event or there's always a chest, that this would maybe be good. Maybe this is something we want to farm now. Maybe cellars are going to be pretty pog. You go and you just pop into one and it always has an event. I mean, maybe this is the best way to farm events now. I don't know. Cellars, it seems like they want to have them in the game. I'm kind of expecting that season 1 is going to have something like demon summoning or something that's going to happen in cellars. We'll have to see. Don't tell anybody. But yeah, we'll have to see what's going on with that. Next up, general quality of life. This next one is for you, Rise QT. They fixed an issue where players could increase attack speed by move canceling attacks early. No longer will you have infinite attack speed if you are just attack canceling. This is really, really good. Hopefully, this does not make character attacks feel clunkier though. But move canceling, making attacks faster, was bad. They fixed an issue where characters weren't immune and untargetable after loading into an area. I don't know if this was actually a bug. I think they just added this. I think this added the loading immunity. This is really good for the hardcore boys. I know a lot of people were concerned about people chaining monsters to the doors of dungeons and killing people. Well, here you go. Next up, the reset dungeon button has been disabled. Oh no. If you don't know what this is, basically you just press J or press tab and open up the map, or I think tab would show it. You open up the map and then on the right hand side, there's this big button that says reset dungeon. If you're by yourself, it would just reset the dungeon. If you're in a group, it would put up a vote and you just get kicked right out of the dungeon right to the door and you can go do it again. Or you could TP out of the dungeon to town and then reset dungeon, go back into the TP and be back in the dungeon. But this is gone now. So it's kind of sad. This really reminds me of playing New World and when we had the basically kill yourself button in the game, obviously. And the people were just abusing the crap out of that to reset to town, all sorts of stuff. And yeah, that's gone now. So I wish that I don't know how we're gonna make sure dungeons are reset, because I've definitely left the dungeon and then come back into it and it's not reset. But yeah, I don't know if I like this all that much. I do I do definitely recognize the fact that there was an issue with being able to instantaneously reset the dungeon. I kind of wish that this was a channeled thing, maybe still something like that. I don't know. Next up, fixed an issue that caused Gale Valley and Sarek Rupture to have less monsters than intended until the campaign quests in those territories were completed. I don't really know where these are, so yeah. Next up, tune into the Diablo IV developer update live stream. This is going to be at 11 a.m. PDT on April 20th, so that's coming up pretty soon. But yeah, I'm pretty hyped for this. I think that there's a lot of really good changes here. A lot of just very good stuff. And I'm very excited, very, very excited to have the game giving us updates and information about what to expect, and especially kind of change notes. There's a lot of things on this list that are going to make people very, very happy. Things that people were, complaining about endlessly, especially like the dungeon gameplay stuff, how some of these classes were a little bit weak. Although I've seen a lot of people complain that Barbarian might be too strong now in endgame. But we'll have to see, and I'm excited to be starting Barbarian. But thank you much, guys, for hanging out. Let me know if you have any questions or comments in the comments below. I am working on the Diablo University series, where we're going to have a whole bunch of stuff covered for how different mechanics work in the game, and I'm very excited to share that with you. And I'm doing some extra special cool stuff with that, so definitely keep an eye out for that. And if you have any questions, come by the stream, subscribe, and thanks.